I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to GearFest 2018. I'm here with a very special guest. This is Tim Pierce.
Hi.
Great to see you.
Nice to see you again,
Thanks for coming in. You've done a few videos.
I do them on a regular basis at this point.
Indeed,
I feel like it's kind of my calling at this point.
Yeah. So you got kind of a two-pronged career going there, don't you? You got the session guitar thing and the educator, we'll say.
Yeah, I have the old profession and the new profession. And the old profession rears up strongly and kind of steals from the new profession sometimes. But
right?
it's a good problem to have, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I still have a lot of great session clients, and I get busy doing that. Right now I'm pretty busy doing that too.
Right. So how does it work these days with the session work? Are you doing that mainly at home? Are you going to studios? Has that changed?
Of course it's changed. I mean, I would say 15 years ago it was 100% away from home, and then in gradual degrees it started to build up to 50%, and now I would say it's about 85% at home.
Is that right?
This last month I did Josh Groban at a big studio, I did Kelly Clarkson at home, and I did Sublime at a big studio. But most of my clients come to my studio. There are a lot of great reasons for that. Scheduling is the best reason for it, because if you book me for a session at my studio and we decide we don't feel like doing it, there's no middleman and there's no commitment to an expensive room.
Right.
You can adjust stuff. It's kind of like being a doctor. It's like I can say, I can see you on Thursday morning. You go, okay. And then you can call me and cancel. And a lot of times that's a gift, because then I can work on my web business and you can come over Saturday morning instead. So that's the easiest thing about it, is scheduling. Right.
So the artists typically come to your home studio then and to work with you there?
And then plus I have all my gear there. If you come to my front door within 5 minutes, we can be recording. If we have a conversation, it can be within 10 minutes. It happens, we can start right away.
Right. Yeah, that's a cool way to do it.
Yeah, it's nice. I like it.
And you get to hang out at home.
That's true too. When the session's over, I am not in LA traffic.
Yeah, no commute.
Yeah.
Right on. So tell us about how you ended up taking that path. I know you started doing some sessions early on with Bon Jovi and Rick Springfield, and then you went on the road with him for a few years, right?
Yeah. So I moved to LA in '79. I just wanted to be a professional musician. I didn't care what that meant. I just wanted to be a professional musician. The music business was very robust in LA in the 80s, and within a couple of years I was able to start doing some high-profile gigs. One of them was Bon Jovi's first set of master demos, which I did in New York. The other one was a John Waite record, which was done at the studio in New York that John Bon Jovi lived at, so that's how I got on the song Runaway, which was his first single.
Right.
And then I got to do a session with Rick Springfield, and he hired me to be his guitar player. And Rick at that moment was super big. He had Jesse's Girl, and he also had this television show, General Hospital. So we did 4 or 5 world tours throughout the 80s. We became great friends. He let me play a lot of guitar on those records. I still work with him, actually. I'm working with him on something right now. They're doing a symphonic version of a lot of his songs, and I did guitar solos on it. So anyway, after Rick Springfield, it was hard for me, because when that gig ended, I started doing publishing demos with songwriters. Then around 1990, I started to do studio work full time, and I kind of got my foothold. There was a record, a Crowded House record that I did that allowed me to kind of get more recognition, and then I did a Toy Matinee record with Pat Leonard, and that was something that really was, I'd say, pivotal, in the early 90s. And throughout the 90s, that was when I got to work with a lot of people that I had always dreamed of working. And during my career as a recording musician, I always held on to my demo people. I remember I did a Bruce Springsteen record. The next day I was doing a demo with a songwriter friend at his house. And when the record business began to change, and I use the word change as, I could use another word, but when it began to change, I was still growing an independent clientele list, and that kind of has sustained me, because now that's kind of what it is.
Right. So you must have reached a point where you said, I'm not going to go on the road anymore, I'm going to do this. How did you reach that decision of which path to take?
Okay, so this is something I discussed with Mark Hornsby on Friday, and I had to tell him the truth about it. When I was touring with Rick Springfield, I never felt that great about being a performer. I always wanted to be in the laboratory. So it wasn't hard for me to give up touring, but the main reason I gave up touring is that if you're on the road and you get a phone call to do a session with somebody you've always dreamed of working with, you can't do it.
Right.
And somebody, not only can't you not do it, but somebody else does it in your place. And I just couldn't live with that. I wanted to be sitting at home next to the telephone 100% of the time. It used to be called a telephone. I wanted to be next to the phone 100% of the time.
Right.
And I remember the first day I worked with Phil Collins, we did a song called You'll Be in My Heart. I ended up working with him for 4 or 5 years, but just recording. The first day I worked with him, his tour manager asked me to go on the road. And I just kind of chuckled and said, dude, no, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting.
But it was easy for me because even when I was in my 20s, I felt like for me it was an artificial place for me to be.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You had a quote, you said you wanted to create an ad that said, musician for hire, no travel, won't work at night.
Yeah, exactly,
I love that.
yeah. Now it would be older musician for hire.
Yeah.
Doesn't travel, doesn't work at night. Available for... question mark.
Right,
That's the,
right.
yeah.
So do you consider yourself, or through your career, do you see yourself as having been more a stylist as a session player, or are you a utility player, or how did you focus?
I basically lost my identity doing sessions, and now I'm able to reclaim it, I would say, a little bit, but it's kind of an either-or thing, and I'm at peace with that, but you really do have to give up your identity if you're going to do every style of music every day,
Right.
And then you can reclaim it. A lot of guys are smart and they reclaim it. Maybe they're not doing sessions all the time. They have their own bands, they're touring, then they come back and do sessions. I was never that guy. I completely gave my life over to doing session work. So I almost feel like now I'm finally beginning to reclaim my identity and I feel like an artist for the first time at this late age.
Yeah, right. That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. So one of the challenges with doing that and with playing all those styles is being authentic in all those different styles. How do you do that? How do you develop that ability?
My love of music comes from Top 40 radio in the 60s. I've already said that a few times today, so forgive me if you've already heard it. So for me, playing on songs was the whole game. So if it's a tremolo guitar part, I can be that guy very naturally. If it's a heavy rock guitar part, if it's a Clapton part, if it's a Van Halen part. I've always loved records so much that it's been easy for me in the domain of rock, country, R&B, soul, to be authentic. I cannot play jazz. I cannot play classical music. I don't have much finger-picking skill. So I know my strengths and weaknesses, but in the domain of guitar parts that you hear on songs, it's easy for me because that's where my love of music originated.
Right, right. I stuck my head into the workshop you were doing earlier with Universal Audio. You were talking about recording with the aux and the incredible piece of gear there. But the topic when I walked in was actually about that, about playing the parts that actually fit the song and kind of giving yourself over to the song. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, a lot of what I do is people bring me a song and I try and turn it around and make it sound amazing within an hour or two. That's not special. Every musician in my field does. Any studio musician tries to do that. A lot of the parts are very simple. It's like orchestration and it's arrangement, and it has nothing to do with proving how special you are as a guitar player. It has to do with creating a dream come true for the people who bring the song to you. That being said, I have taken simple ideas and made them simpler over time. So everything I do now is so simple, I'm almost embarrassed by it. It's a simple, it's a very difficult thing to create parts and sounds on a song instantly. So it doesn't always translate into, virtuosity or, it's a different thing.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a little different approach, isn't it? You're not showing off necessarily.
That's what, that's what I was trying to say. So,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, right. The other aspect of that is beyond the notes and the musical parts that you play. Well, there are two other aspects. But one is choosing the right tone to suit what's happening there. And we see your studio in the videos and things, and you have a tremendous array of equipment and things. How do you choose the right piece of gear and the right tone to use for a part?
It's easier than it sounds. A lot of the collection of gear that I have has been acquired over time. And there was a period in LA when there was an arms race between everybody. Like, I used to show up at sessions with 40 guitars, 8 amps, racks, pedal boards, pedals, because people would say, do you have an old Jaguar? And if you didn't have it, your heart would sink. So you really had to have all this stuff. A lot of the gear I have is left over from there, but I have to tell you that these days, if you have an amp that you love that you can bring into I'll use the word again, where it blooms and it has the sweet spot, and you have some pedals that you like, and you have a small collection of guitars that stay in tune and sound good, and then your recording chain is good. That's all you need. You don't need a lot these days to make good guitar sounds. And a lot of sounds are cleaner than you think. And the simple stuff like tremolo and reverb, there's nothing better. So it's easier than you think.
So do you pretty much recognize when you hear a song, or what is the current state of a song? This needs a clean part. This needs a heavily know what pretty much it tells you what you're going after.
Or the person sitting across from me who's brought me the song, you start to read them and find out what they want first. Like, what would you like to do first? And then we dive in, and maybe it's a part that sounds like one of their favorite bands. It's easy. I try and pull ideas from everybody in the room. It might be the engineer, the producer, the artist. I try and use every tool. And film directors do that. When you're on a film shoot, a director will want everybody to come up with, it's the best idea. It doesn't matter if it's yours. It doesn't matter if it's Led Zeppelin that you're listening to. It's the best idea. And then I don't have to actually emulate it totally. I just have to get the spirit of it and sound sort of like it. So that's the other thing. Some people are obsessed with getting the exact tone. For me, it's my version of that tone. Right.
I know that a lot of us have the impression of session players. At least my era, you read the Tommy Tedesco articles in Guitar Player, and those guys were monster readers, and they could play anything from top to bottom. Is that still essential as a session player, to be able to read and to be able to really sit down and do that stuff?
Yes and no. I was never able to do that. I have no training. My training is 2 years of guitar lessons once a week with a great teacher from age 12 to 14. I'm self-taught. And I've always been in rooms with musicians who have much greater schooling than I do, and I wish I had the reading skills that the people I work with have. However, I've always been, in the 80s, the studio musician changed. It became somebody who came in and created parts. I am hired to write my own guitar parts. I do a chord chart, and together we come up with all the guitar parts. It's a different skill in film and television, and that's still a very strong thing in LA. And if you can read and play all the styles, you have a much better chance of working in film or television. But the studio musician profile changed in the 80s and 90s, and it became a situation where you actually create and originate the parts, so you didn't have to be a reader.
Right. Yeah, I think that everyone thinks you have to be able to read anything that's on the page to be able to do that. There is that thrust.
Yeah, and there are certain things I would love to do that I can't because I'm not a sight reader. But the thing is, there is another kind of speed. Everything you do has to happen instantly. So that's the same pressure, but it's applied to a different kind of craft.
Right.
Everything I do has to happen instantly.
Right. That's a challenge. You always have to be on, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I have to ask you, you mentioned Toy Matinee, and that's one of my favorite albums. I mean, that's a tremendous piece of work. You have any memories of working on those sessions?
I knew when we did that it was going to be one of my favorite things. I knew this was going to be like a lifetime great thing. I was enamored with Pat Leonard and his talent and his musicality. And I think I was going to try and tell Lyle on stage. I think they offered that gig to Lyle Workman, and because he was busy with Frank Black or Bourgeois Tag or one of the bands he was in, he turned it down. I think I got that gig because Lyle turned it down.
Is that right?
And Lyle has always been polite enough never to actually mention that to me. I'm going to try and but I think it was his gig. Anyway, it was very musical. Incredible writing. Pat had the luxury of paying us all and put us all on salary for 3 months, and we all camped out. And those songs were done live. Those were all live performances with minimal overdubs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a highlight in my career.
Yeah, definitely a tremendous piece of work. That's very cool. So the other thrust of your career currently is the TimPierceGuitar.com.
Yes.
And the Masterclass.
Yes.
And all your YouTube videos. Tell us a little bit about that.
About 8 years ago, I discovered some people online who were doing, online lessons on a large scale, and I thought, if I can just have a fraction of some of these people's success, then I can transition out of studio work, because I've been doing studio work for 35 years. I know it's not going to last forever. So 8 years ago, I started filming, and I developed a YouTube audience, and I monetized about 2 years ago. And now I have a full-time film editor and 3 part-time employees, and it's a successful small business. For me, like I said, it makes me feel like an artist. I can actually appear in videos doing my own music, and so unexpectedly, I feel like it's my real calling at this point. I still have the 2 professions, and they kind of get in the way of each other at times, but the greatest thing about it is teaching people, and then if I met 3 people already today who were grateful for the stuff that I had shown them online. That is the greatest thing, is when you meet somebody who says, dude, I learned this and I learned that, and thank you so much for doing these videos. That's been the greatest thing. It really has, the appreciation.
So how often do the videos come out?
I try and do a video on YouTube once a week, which YouTube demands much more than that. So I'm lucky I even have a profile on YouTube with once a week. You know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Should be 5 times a week. I'm going to try and do twice a week so I can, get it a little better. But my masterclass, the premium site, has almost 1,000 videos and 100 hours of content. So I do YouTube videos, I do Instagram videos, and then I do content for the masterclass.
Okay. And so you're constantly adding to all 3 of those channels then, if you will?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you come up with the topics that you're covering?
It's pretty random, and sometimes I'll look on YouTube and find something I like. Sometimes I'll look at another educator and find something I like. Sometimes one of my students will say, hey, you should do this, you should do that. So there's no shortage of ideas, and that stuff just comes up. Like the video I released today is my footage of the PRS Experience Festival. And that was important to me, and it was a great, there were a lot of great things about it. So it's kind of a little mini documentary about the PRS Experience Festival.
Right.
A couple of weeks ago, I did a video on exercises, and it was humbling because I couldn't do the exercises.
I watched that one, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
The other thing I like to do is feature guitar players. Like I had Dean Parks on doing his Change the World rhythm part. Guys like Josh Smith, Mark Letary. That's fun too, featuring other guitar players.
Yeah, you've done quite a bit of that, where you've got 2 of you kind of working off different things.
It's really fun.
And
humbling.
That's awesome. Well, I'd be remiss if we didn't go back and mention that Universal Audio brought you in today, and you were on a workshop where you're talking about the aux. Tell us a little bit about your experience with that.
I still love my amps. I still get the greatest sounds from my natural signal chain. But the aux, it's very simple. It's very user-friendly. And as I described in the workshop we did, direct recording puts the sound right in your face. And as much as I love my amps and my natural sounds, it's still not totally right in your face. So that's a great thing about it. The actual room sounds in it are amazing. It's very easy to use. You choose your cabinet, you choose your microphone, your second microphone, you choose your room microphone, and it's amazing. It's like, am I in the record plant? Am I at Electric Ladyland? It's awesome.
Right.
It's really awesome.
Right. And for the kind of things that you're talking about with your sessions, and certainly for the educational things that you do, what a great solution.
Yeah, and for me, it's a great tool in the toolbox. I don't use it for everything because, like I say, I still have my signal chain, but I can't get those room sounds. My vault is small. We all have limitations. A lot of people can't even turn up an amp at home because they have babies, and so I mean it's an awesome thing, and it's so easy to boot up and use, and you're using your amp, the amp that you love. It's great.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Well, we're very appreciative of those guys bringing you out here. UA is a great company, and of course we have a great relationship with them here at Sweetwater, and we're grateful to them for bringing you out and having you do the workshop. And we're actually doing a YouTube workshop later this afternoon, aren't we?
We are.
We've got a little panel discussion where we'll
look forward to that.
Be learning your wisdom there as well.
Yeah.
So lots of fun stuff going on at GearFest.
Yeah.
Great to see you, Tim.
You too.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. And thank you for joining me here at GearFest 2018. I'm Mitch Gallagher.